This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/thehorrorofbabylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to episode 123 of The Horror of Babylon, where we review The Great God Pan. I'm Ryan, and with me as always is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Howdy.
And Hef's here too.
How y'all doing? Pert near good to be here.
It's not good to be here, but it's pert near it.
It's pert near it.
It's pert near it. Yeah. But you know who's not pert near my heart because they're right on my heart? It's our patrons, including Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron, and Ben the Fourth, Patron of Hope, and Mia the Fifth, the Rainmaker.
She makes it rain, yo.
Oh, she makes it rain. And Sierra the Sixth, the Keyblade Patron. Dude, I don't think Keyblades actually would make that noise because they're round.
Yeah, I do. I have a whole rant just on Keyblades.
Yeah. It's cool. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at horsemen.tcgplayerpro.com. And if you make it into the store, say hello to Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas, and tell him that really my life is yours to do with Ron as you will. Since you found me in the gutter and you raised me, I really have no free will. You can just decide to do whatever you want.
This one feels a little bit more real than some of your other ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did make me do some things back in the day. I worked for him for about half a decade. And
yeah.
There was a lot of peanut butter.
There was a lot of peanut butter. My jaw got so sore. Trigger warning, forced experimentation, suicide, forced impregnation, sexual assault, yeah.
Women.
Or a trigger warning?
I would, that's Daniel.
Yeah, that's me.
All right, our history with the Great God Pan. Daniel, you go ahead.
I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a fan of a little game called Bloodborne.
No.
And I watch an obsessive amount of YouTube video essays on things I like. And I was watching one on Bloodborne, and they were talking about how not only is the game about, Lovecraftian elder gods, but it also makes references to gothic horror. And they referenced a book called The Great God Pan, and how its story kind of mirrors some stuff that happened in some of the side stories in the game. And I was like, I've never heard of this before. So I went and I looked it up, and I was like, oh, that seems super interesting, and I ordered it and I read it.
It was 2 days ago where I asked Ryan, I said, we're still good for Prey and the interview tomorrow or on Friday, right? And he said, yeah, also we're reading The Great God Pan. It's 2 hours long. You should read it. And I did, and now I'm here.
I would have added you to this if I'd realized that.
It was literally 2 days ago. He was just like, here.
I've been in sort of a fugue state for a few days, so...
Maybe we'll get you your own Meiji restoration.
Yeah.
So I listened to the Classic Tales podcast with BJ Harrison. He's a guy who produces his own audiobooks using novellas, and short stories that are in the public domain. And there's a free podcast. You can also buy them as audiobooks through Audible, and most of them are like under $5. Like, I bought this one, it was $3 on Audible. But I listen to his podcast occasionally, and a few years ago, The Great God Pan was an episode he did where he read it as an audiobook. I was like, oh, okay, Daniel has always recommended that book to me. I'll check it out. And I was like, have you ever read something where you like, I know this is brilliant, but I'm too stupid to get it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my first impression of The Great God Pan. And I read it again and for this podcast, and still kind of the same vibe, but I like it. Like, this is good, but I feel like if I was a smarter person, I'd like it even more. And then real quick, Daniel, why did we, aside from the fact that we both like it, why did we choose to do this book specifically and another book we're going to be doing later in the year?
Because Stephen King said it's in the top 2 scariest books ever written.
And the other one is?
The Ceremonies.
By T.E.D.
Klein.
I
keep calling him Ted Klein, even though I know his name is T.E.D.
We will be doing that book. I think we have it scheduled for like at the end of the summer.
Yeah, because it's a little bit longer, and this one was like 30 pages.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition.
I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Background, this book was written by Arthur Mach, published in 1890. Has Stephen King described it as maybe the best horror story in the English language. Machen's works were deeply influenced by his childhood in Wales and his reading of the occult and metaphysics. He's usually noted in the better studies of Anglo-Welsh literature. At the time, other authors were Oscar Wilde, William Butler Yeats, and Arthur Conan Doyle.
I included that part just because I saw Arthur Conan Doyle, and I'm like, oh, a contemporary that I like.
Yeah, love him. He's my guy. They were all admirers of Machen. I read that he actually lost face because of The Great God Pan.
Yeah, that's something that happened.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people didn't want to associate with him anymore because the book was, like, demonic.
Mm-hmm. And it was, like, overtly sexual.
Yeah.
And it kind of ruined his reputation, even though it has turned out to be his most it's his best known work.
Yeah.
By far.
I also really want to read his book, The White People. That's the actual title. That's the only reason I want to read it.
Okay, so what would become the first chapter of The Great God Pan was published as a short story in the magazine The Whirlwind in 1890, was later extended into the full novella, The Great God Pan, and was published as a book alongside another story, The Inmost Light. Have you read that?
No, I haven't read that one.
I have not. On publication, it was widely denounced by the press as degenerate and horrific, which, I mean, yeah, that's not wrong. In his 1922 autobiography, Far Off Things, Machen wrote that The Great God Pan was inspired by the times he visited Usk, a Welsh river, and the Welsh towns of Caerleon on the Usk and Caerwent as a boy. All of these places have been settled by the Romans, and strange relics were allegedly found there.
Oh, there's our vacation, boys.
Sure.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. In writing the novel, he tried to pass on the vague, indefinable sense of awe and mystery and terror that he had received while visiting those ruins, which I think he did. If I could describe this novel with one word, because I thought, I'm not thinking of this now, this is something I've thought out of both times I read it, the word would be vague.
Yeah. I think it's to the novel's strength, but yeah, it is.
Yeah, I don't imagine if it tried to over-explain itself, it would be successful. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I don't imagine.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
Okay, structure and themes, genre. Daniel, you want to kick us off?
Okay, so I've seen this book labeled as all sorts of things, and the entire Wikipedia section for this is different, like, other authors or scholars arguing over what its genre technically is. So what do you guys think? Is it science fiction, horror, gothic, or fantasy?
I think it fits all of those in some way.
I also think that, but there's I guess scholars are just the actuallys of the professional world.
I mean, they want to be technical.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm a professor of such and such literature.
And the whole section is just like different people arguing with each other's points.
Well, I recently watched a video on classifying species and subspecies of wolves. And
that sounds awesome.
Zoologists cannot agree. And it's just like, there's a war on how to classify certain species and subspecies of wolves. Like, is the dingo a subspecies of wolf? Like, there are people who will, like, kill over that. But it's just like, it's part of being an academic, classification and organization, like...
Yeah.
What it must be like to be having red wine at that table.
Just reading stuff like, it doesn't technically fit science fiction because of Mary Shelley's influence on electricity. It was like you know how like you were talking about how when you read this you wish you were a little bit smarter? Mm-hmm. That's how I felt when I was reading this point. I was like, I wish I was like a tiny bit smarter so I could understand like what the point they're trying to make is.
Maybe I'm just too lazy.
Yeah.
So like
I bet you like if I spent time researching it we could all figure it out, but
this is just one of those. That's one of those things where, like, you know, modern day Hef is basically just like, why does it matter?
I just want to read
like,
the book.
Is the book good? Yeah. All right. There you go. I'm not an academic though, so I could probably, you know, cross my T's. I could probably cross my T's and dot my I's if I was really picky.
But I did think I would be remiss if I did not at least bring that up.
If you put a gun to my head and made me pick one, I would pick horror. But obviously it has fantasy and sci-fi aspects to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a spooky book.
Yeah,
Like,
I think
it's very spooky.
The biggest thing to me is the like continuous like malicious vibe throughout the like you just get this sense throughout the entire story that nothing is okay.
Yeah.
Like
this book is very nihilistic.
Okay, so sometimes this book is called decadent literature. It features hallmarks of the genre such as occultism, paganism, non-mainstream eroticism, sexual diversity, the femme fatale, violent and strange deaths, and the simultaneous investment in the disavowal of the bourgeoisie identities.
Yeah, a lot of it was like that.
Non-mainstream eroticism?
Oh yeah, like fucking a satyr.
I mean,
it's basically a furry book.
It's not a man and a woman having sex. It's a gender ambiguous deity that changes between various species and genders. And
I'm not gonna lie, like, I had to go back a couple of times to try to figure out what the fuck was going on in this book sometimes. So like I'd just get like I'd listen to if I trailed off mentally for like half a second, I'd come back and be like, wait, what? Like, because this book, like vague is a good word, I think, for what you were saying, because like I feel like a lot of the points that are going on in this book, especially like the, you know, when you realize that Pan impregnated Mary and did that, like I did not pick up on that when I read it.
To be fair, I think it was written to be sort of a twist.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did, like I enjoyed it the first time I read it, but I did also had kind of a hard time with it. So before I reread it for the podcast, I read a summary of it.
I read one after that just to kind of like make sure I understood what had happened.
Yeah.
Part of that I do feel was the way language has evolved and the way we use certain words and the way people write these days versus how they wrote back then.
I think it's also just a very non-traditional story structure.
Yeah.
There's no, you know, rise and fall, and I mean there's kind of
it reminds me more of like a heartbeat with a palpitation.
There's kind of a climax when they confront Helen in her rooms, but
I didn't even understand that was happening when it was happening.
Yeah.
Like I had to, like, again after I read it, like, oh, that's what they were doing, because I feel like it just immediately happens and you're like just there now. And
it's not storytelling the way that the modern American audience is used to having stories told.
Yeah.
Occultism as a science is a part of this book.
Yeah.
It is a part of this book.
It really kind of just focuses on like non-real science, like
Pseudoscience.
Yeah, it's I want to make someone see a world that the ancients used to see before the veil fell between humans and gods.
I want to take a scalpel, make an alteration to this woman's brain so that she can connect with the spirit world.
Yeah.
And then she sees a baby with a pacifier giving orders to a middle school student. She's just like...
And she's like, this is the greatest thing I have ever watched.
Yeah.
How'd he know how to do that?
Forbidden knowledge.
I mean, that just goes along with what we said.
Yeah.
There was kind of... It's funny that it mentions that Conan Doyle was an admirer of this guy, because kind of part of the history of Arthur Conan Doyle that isn't something that's well known is that after he stopped writing the Sherlock Holmes stories, he got really, really into spiritualism. To the point where he was like having seances and writing pamphlets on spiritualism.
He wanted to see Pan.
Yeah. So I can see where a book like this might appeal to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a straight belief.
And kind of side tangent on that, Arthur Conan Doyle's most popular non-Sherlock Holmes character is Professor Challenger, which most people have probably heard of, or one of the adaptations of his first Professor Challenger novel, The Lost World, which is a story where a group of English explorers and scientists go to South America and find like a plateau suspended above the continent where dinosaurs still live. Like TBS or TNT had like a long-running science fiction TV series that was based on that book. Yeah. But he actually wrote 5 Professor Challenger novels and short stories, and the 5th one was basically a piece of pro-spiritualism propaganda that he just used the Professor Challenger characters as like a means to get that spiritualism propaganda out into the
people
populace.
Should do tarot card readings.
Yeah.
That is a long con if I've heard one.
It involved like essentially the John Watson equivalent of the Professor Challenger stories being exposed to spiritualism and then trying to get Professor Challenger into spiritualism, and at the end of the book is them both conceding and admitting that spiritualism is right.
Paganism is the one true God. Sorry.
It's
structure. Shifting character perspectives where they recount other events that happened.
Yeah.
I think that this is where some people will get a little bit lost.
Yeah.
Because it's a character's perspective, and then he's like, hey, let me tell you what happened like 20 days ago for like 10 paragraphs.
Yeah. A lot of this kind of verges into characters, but a lot of the characters, like, the lines blur between, like, okay, there's Clark, and there's Villiers, and there's Phillips, but which one is Phillips?
I had to use a guide when I wrote characters.
Yeah. It's rough.
Strangely enough, the comic helped me with that.
The comic helped a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of the like they redo some of the races on some of those characters in the comics,
but it helps them stick out.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this may not just be like a diversity thing. It's just like, okay, this one's black and this one's not black. That helps me remember which is which.
This one's a ginger. This one has a mustache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part is it was Mary.
The structure. Well, she does actually at the end of the comic when he. Clark and Villiers force Helen to kill herself. She does grow a mustache as she's changing genders.
This has been a day of hive mind for me, and I'm.
Oh, just you wait, baby. We're just getting started.
Oh, good.
But just structure-wise, like I said earlier, it's not traditional storytelling.
Yeah.
I can definitely see Stephen King being influenced by this, and honestly, I think Stephen King does it better.
Yeah.
We've mentioned during our It coverage and in our Dark Tower coverage that he has a bad habit, bad-ish habit of having a character have like a flashback within a flashback. I think Stephen King does a better job of letting you know what is happening and making it less confusing, but his books are also immensely longer than this story, in Arthur Machen's defense.
You have a little bit more time to understand a character and kind of keep a memory of it. So it's over a longer period that are introduced, whereas this one's like you're 30 minutes in and you've got 6 characters you're keeping track of all at once.
Themes.
Paganism.
We mentioned that. Science going too far.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know being an audiophile was a crime.
What a file?
Whoa. That just means that he is a connoisseur of high-end audio equipment.
Oh.
Existential crises. If you've read Lovecraft, you get a heavy dose of that, and I think a lot of that started with books like this, where they can't handle what they're being told, so they're just going to hang themselves.
Tom can't handle seeing Pennywise in his true form, so his brain's just going to explode.
Yeah. I don't want to go back to Derry. Where's my razor?
Yeah.
Evil women, I just kind of put because Helen was, like, really emphasized as, like... They mentioned she's, like, the femme fatale archetype.
If it helps, the evil women are created because of what a man did to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Raymond's like, I can do whatever I want with this girl. I can fuck with her brain.
He was, like, real, like, oh, man.
He's a
like,
bad man.
I got creeped out whenever he was just like, I helped raise her, so she's basically whatever I want to do with her.
Yeah.
I'm just like, ew.
Okay, but to be fair, he did prove that Pan was probably real.
Great.
Yeah. What do you do with that information?
I like he went probably. Like he definitely proved that Pan is probably real. Like 95% certain. That is not 100% certain.
I mean, I can throw one of my kids in the tiger exhibit at Pittsburgh Zoo and prove that tigers eat children.
Yeah.
I did it!
Has science gone too far yet again?
That's really fun.
They can't argue with me at the university anymore.
You'll get my dissertation whenever I get out.
Call me a quack, will you? Oh, I'm going to perform brain surgery on this homeless woman.
Stuck on feeding your kid to a tiger.
Any others?
Yes, lions probably enjoy it too. I mean, but yeah.
Probably. You got to do the other kid on lions.
That way you can prove they eat meat too.
Yeah.
We taught a lion to eat tofu.
That's great.
Falling waterfall. I wish I could go back in time and relive the moment when I realized all the falling waterfalls
They're all
were
related.
Yeah, and they each like come up when the other one dies and goes like, "Grandpa, no!" I wish I could relive that moment. Okay. Other themes. I enjoy like the comparison of how like city people handle a spooky occult thing happening and how country people. Yeah. It's not like a blatant theme, but
I don't know what you would call that, but that is cool.
Yeah.
You even got like the way different classes react. You got, I guess, classism is sort of a theme.
Sort of, yeah.
Because you got like people becoming destitute, homeless waifs because they got too involved with the woman.
Yeah, and most of them start as like the most privileged of privileged, like a step down from the royal family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad basically gave me a job after he died, but then I met the woman.
And now I'm homeless on the street.
Oh boy, if I can relate.
But Helen is kind of the great equalizer because she does the same thing to poor people living in a Welsh village.
Yeah, she's like, I'll just do it to anybody who talks to me. She does it to a girl. So
they're coming to get you, Barbara.
We're jumping to characters. Before we start, so we're doing an episode on the novella, and then we're doing an episode on a comic adaptation of it. Daniel did our outline for the novella. I did it for the comic adaptation. When I did the character section, I wrote 3 letters, M-E-H, because characters. It's so Lovecraft, and it doesn't really have characters.
Characters aren't the important part. It's the spooky nonsense.
But there are named people who do things, so we're about to talk about them.
And you can see I gave small notes to keep straight who was who.
Okay, Dr. Raymond, we've kind of already mentioned, but
he's a bad man.
He's a bad man. He is the scientist who finds Mary in the street, raises her, decides that he wants to prove that humans can connect with the spirit realm and quote-unquote see the great god Pan, and decides that he can his neuroscience is so advanced that with a simple alteration with a scalpel to her brain, he can make that happen.
I met this great guy named Victor. He gave me this idea. Let's do some nonsense.
Nonsensical nonsense. But yeah, he's about as scumbaggy as characters get.
And then he writes a letter at the end explaining the plot.
Yeah, which was actually pretty helpful.
Yeah, it is super helpful. He's like, yeah, here's what happened. Sorry, fam.
No, he's not. I'm not sure, like, how apologetic he really is.
Yeah.
In the end. Like, I mean, obviously, like, he recognizes that it's not good, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to spend the rest of my life repenting for these things. I'll sell all of my worldly goods and I will become a missionary.
That's why it's more of like a my bad.
Yeah.
This was Humbert's practice letter.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's pretty bad, and he was probably also sleeping with this underage girl, so, you know. Humbert, yeah.
Yes, it was definitely Pan who was the father. That explains everything.
Well, just because Pan was the father of Helen doesn't mean that Dr. Raymond wasn't also sleeping. I mean,
I'm just making it.
What was Mary's last request before the procedure?
Not all
I would like
satyrs.
a kiss, sir.
Not all satyrs are dryads. You see, sometimes they're nymphets.
That is so.
No satyrs are dryads.
Nope.
Clark. He's the one who had memoirs to prove the existence of the devil.
I thought this guy killed himself halfway through the book.
He did not.
He just did not want any more of that nonsense.
He's sort of the frame narrative character, sort of.
The book tricks you into thinking he's the main character for about 20 pages and then says, he's gone.
Yeah. But you spend more time with Villiers than you do with Clark, but it always comes back to Clark. And it kind of, at the first time I read it at the beginning, it kind of makes you think that Clark is kind of going to be like a frame narrative character where there's this prologue with the experiment, and then the rest of the book is going to be Clark going through his various articles in his book explaining these various stories, and it kind of starts that way,
and then it stops,
and then it's just like, now we're going to jump to Villiers.
Yeah.
But Villiers will go back to Clark.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is fine.
Which is where I understand people getting a little lost when you read it.
Yeah, I like this book, but it's not a book that I would ever criticize somebody else for not liking, or at least not
getting right away.
Yeah. It's also genre-wise, it's not a very accessible, like, it's not a widely proclaimed genre that, you know, like, everybody loves.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Disney movies or whatever.
Mary.
This woman confused the shit out of me, because I somehow missed when it was being delivered unto my ears that there was a time jump.
Yeah, there's a big.
I missed that.
Jump.
I missed that somewhere. So like that whole prologue where he's talking about Mary, I thought that was a few days.
Naruto,
and then we're talking about this girl called Helen, and I'm
we
like,
skipped right to Shippuden.
Yeah, no, she was the biggest source of confusion throughout basically the entire story that I read, because I did not
none of it.
Well, I missed the time jump.
Yeah.
That was what confused me. Like, I did not know a time jump had occurred, and that made the entire book very indecipherable for a lot of it.
She asks her groomer to give her a kiss. She has a seizure, then dies.
It was when we got to the end of the book where he sees the picture of Mary in the back of the book, and I was like, wait, the girl that we saw a few days ago? What the fuck's she doing?
She is like the victim of the book, though.
Yes.
I mean, and basically every character in this book is a victim in some way or another, but it all kind of stems from what Raymond did to Mary.
I just really want to prove the Greeks were right.
I wish that there was a movie version of this story so that it could go on Disney Plus, and when people finish watching Percy Jackson and the Olympians, it says, "Hey, you like Percy Jackson and the Olympians? Watch this."
Just make it a direct sequel.
Just because the algorithm would pick them both up as Greek related and
yeah.
Okay, Villiers. I think Villiers is like the closest to like your normal dude in this book.
Takes on an investigative role.
He shows up just like, yeah,
but only when he kind of feels like it is sort of the thing.
But he's also like when we were doing the Call of Cthulhu and you were talking about the character who finds the diary and it's just like, dude, just walk away.
Instead, he takes a noose and goes, "Hey, you should probably hang yourself, abomination."
Yeah, apparently, unlike an H.P. Lovecraft character, like, apparently it works out okay for him. I mean, maybe he went crazy and killed himself after, but...
If I would have seen what happened to Helen's body, like, happen in front of me, I might have killed myself. I'd probably been like, nope. No.
Everything I believe is now challenged. I don't know what to do.
I don't remember who Herbert is.
He's the dude who started
who married Helen.
And
yeah,
he's a homeless. He's kind of
okay.
What makes Villiers go, "Hey, maybe I should look into this."
So that's like, and then Austin. Yeah, this is where it like gets,
it doesn't matter. Just,
yeah, it's like what.
But I started listing characters because I'm like, well, you know.
Let's talk about Helen because she matters.
She matters.
Who's Helen?
She was the daughter of Mary and the satyr, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I did not understand what that was at all. I had to read the excerpt at the end to be like, that's what this is. Like,
but
I didn't understand it all.
It's also like purposely vague about like what is she actually.
Yeah, it does like it doesn't even give you hints. It just tells you bad shit she's involved in.
Not only what she is, but what she does to people is left like.
Yeah, you don't know.
Very vague.
Yeah. You don't even know how she... Like, you know those guys committed suicide, but you don't really know what made them
We know that she sat on the bed and talked to Herbert.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, he talked... And I'll tell you, Villiers, such terrible, terrible things. If I see that woman again, I will just die.
I don't know if you know this, but we live in Victorian England, and a woman speaking to you is terrifying.
She spoke down to me. Me.
I wrote down that she had that like creepy girl woman thing down pat because they kind of like really emphasize that she's pretty, but she's sort of vague looking. Like people can't put their thumb on like what her looks actually are. She's an otherworldly hybrid. Like what else can you say? She's an abomination.
She was cool. Like I liked the vibe it was giving her in that because like I vague is. In Helen's case, vague works because like it keeps you kind of on that little edge of being like you want to know more. You're
one of my favorite parts of the book is how they would like tease you, like they might explain it and then they didn't.
Yeah, and then they just didn't. It's like edging.
It's like when that little girl was like, "Why did you make me go out with Helen?" And then Clark starts to write what happened and then just cuts off.
Yeah,
because he can't.
I think that there's no way that if you tried to explain what actually happens in this book, there's no way you could have a satisfactory answer.
Yeah. Like, the closest we get is, like, when they find the artist's drawings and he was drawing satyrs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the closest you get to maybe what was going on, what she was, like, showing people.
Mm-hmm.
But the man in the wood with the little boy who... that turned him dumb. He was so scared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so Pan.
The great god.
Now, I don't want to fawn over this guy.
How many more of those do you have?
I have been working on my satirical humor.
Thank you.
Oh.
That one. Oh. That was the goat. We need to finish this so you guys can hoof it.
Yeah, he's a great god, apparently. I haven't seen Hef walk out since Sayori.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a couple of years. But a character... Not really, but not...
He's a character in the same way that Cthulhu is, but even less so.
Yeah, even less.
Because even Cthulhu showed up.
Yeah.
He showed up to the party.
But he didn't bring anything. Like, everybody was supposed to bring chips or plates or cups. Cthulhu didn't bring anything.
No, he just attacked the boat.
Yeah, what the fuck, Cthulhu?
Yeah. This dude, he's like, he clicked maybe on the Facebook.
And then showed up late and didn't bring anything and brought people that weren't invited.
Yeah.
And drank everybody else's beer.
He sent his daughter instead.
Oh.
I'll kill you all. I'll drive you crazy and I'll kill you all. I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
All right, scary shit. Is this novella scary?
There are certain things about this that certainly get under my skin, but there are just things that scare me that I don't think scare you.
I don't think it's scary. Like, it would never, like, keep me up at night.
Yeah.
But I think this has, like, one of the quote-unquote scariest tones.
It's just very bleak feeling.
It's very menacing. It's very dread-inducing. Like, I just feel uneasy the entire time I'm reading it.
Like, you have people just killing themselves, and the book kind of makes you go, yeah, I get it.
It's an epidemic of suicide!
And under scary shit, I wrote brain surgery because that terrifies me.
Yeah.
Unseen gods and women.
That's my top 3 right there.
Mine's alligators, crocodiles, and brain aneurysms.
I'm afraid of sharks and the IRS.
I learned...
What's the difference?
It's a joke from Boss Baby 2.
I have always had a fear of lightning.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because I was driving, like, to work one night, and a lightning bolt, like, hit right beside my car as I was driving.
Ugh.
And I about crashed, and because I couldn't actually, like, my senses were gone.
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So I've always had a thing about lightning. That was escalated last week. Because I didn't know until my child told me that in science class, she learned that lightning goes from the ground into the sky.
Hiya! Happy Easter!
I did not know this. Now I just don't look outside and I'm just like, everywhere I step there could be a bolt of lightning waiting for me there.
We have to Google this now.
Does lightning strike from the sky down or the ground up?
Both.
Cloud to ground lightning comes from the sky down, but the part you see comes from the ground up. A typical cloud to ground flash lowers the path of negative electricity that we cannot see towards the ground in a series of spurts.
That makes it scarier to me because...
How do we make it worse?
Because now I go, like, and during a thunderstorm, I'm just looking outside and everything on the ground, like, it's all dangerous. It doesn't matter that I'm going out with a lightning rod. It's all on the ground.
I think the class that I took in college that I walked away with the least amount of knowledge from was the meteorology class I took. I'm rough with... I have a great respect for science, but I'm really more of a humanities guy, you know, history and literature. But, like, I sat through that weather class and I was just like, none of this makes sense to me. It's all hoodoo magic.
If only we had a doctor to perform brain surgery.
Yeah. Hef, was it scary?
No, but it was intriguing, I think is a good word for this book. Like, I don't think it's overall fear. Again, modern times being what they are. But I was interested. Like, just the mystery behind Helen herself is definitely what would keep you going through the book. And that's definitely what got me through it. Because I was like, you know, what is going on
So you
here?
say, genre-wise, it's more of a mystery.
I think...
Take that, you academics!
I think that's the vibe I got, especially since I couldn't understand half the fucking book by the time I got done with it.
Man, I read Gray's Anatomy of the Human Body. That's one of the craziest mystery books I ever read. I didn't understand a word of it.
Wait till you get to the clitoris. It's real good.
Oh, Stan.
What we're really missing here is what the actual thing of the story was, is that Pan really just wanted a biscuit. But the only door he had to get here was through, you know, birthing. That's how it's cosmic horror. It's how it gets there. You don't have to understand it. You just know he needs a biscuit.
I think it's sus that if Mary was a virgin, I call sus on that.
Yeah.
I learned that word from Ninja Turtles.
I learned it from...
Really?
I learned it from the collective batch of people that play that game with the little dudes that have no arms.
Among Us.
Among Us?
Yeah, that thing.
I don't think she has to literally be a virgin. It's just the idea of unseen entity impregnating somebody
yeah.
against their will. and have a horrible abomination of a child that performs miracles.
Oh my God, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Kings and Koontz, Ryan.
I think just My King is the tone. Like, it's the most, like, devilishly dark and unnerving tone of, like, almost any book I've read. I think the only thing that competes with it is Pet Sematary. Like, just, this book puts me on edge like most other books never could. Like I said in Scary Shit, I don't really think the content of it is scary. It's just got this dour tone to it that I feel like is pretty unique.
That's also my king.
This is the first book that ever gave me blue balls.
That's your king?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it gives you that...
I assume you're not counting manga.
It just does that thing where, like, every story you're told is just like a little bit of a tease.
Yeah.
And you just want more, and it's not going to give it to you.
Well, I like
it's edging the book, you were right. Koontz.
I hate this line, and I feel like maybe I'm just too dumb and I don't understand the actual meaning behind it, but only humans have names! And I'm like, the literal title of your book is the name of a non-human entity, the great god Pan.
I want to change my king. Ryan's rant is my king.
I just think it's so stupid. But maybe it means something else that I don't know.
Maybe it's a phrase from Victorian England, we just don't know.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, maybe
now that you say that out loud...
Pan doesn't identify as Pan.
If you take that
He's
line...
pansexual. He doesn't identify as Pan.
I think the Pan would be Pan.
Pan would be Pan. He only does himself. So he doesn't identify
That's not
as
what Pan means.
I don't know what it means.
It means everything.
It means a cross.
Yeah.
Pan means a cross?
Yeah.
Oh, like to Pan.
Like Pan-American. Like I'm going cross... I'm doing a Pan-American journey.
I've never heard that phrase.
I'm sure you've heard it. It's just gone in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, 100%. There's too much stuffed up here. I can't get everything back in. Where was I?
I'm trying to come up with a Koontz.
Oh,
Ryan
Koontz.
distracted me. I really do appreciate Raymond's letter at the end because it does help you understand the plot.
Mm-hmm.
But so much of the book was just so deliciously vague, which is something just appeals to me. Where I'm like, well, okay, I guess I got my answer. I'm probably the only person that's ever going to be bothered by that.
Yeah, I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
I think without it, it would be so vague that it wouldn't be like, you feel like you wasted your time reading it.
Raccoon says, for a short book, you have to really pay attention.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you end up having exactly what happened to me, where I missed one line where I didn't understand that we did a time jump. And I was questioning pretty much the rest of the book because I didn't understand what was happening. So, I don't know.
That's fair. Rankings. So let me first ask, have you happened to have read The Little Sisters of Illyria?
I forgot.
Okay.
It's still number one.
Still number one. Where are you ranking the great god Pan?
I really liked it. I think it goes to number 7.
Above,
right below Dracula,
and above the drawing of the three.
Yeah, I liked what I read. Even if I was confused by it, I very much enjoyed it.
No, it's a good book.
It's a vibe.
I have it at number 23, below the Bone Farm and above the Wastelands, which when I first put it there, I was like, oh, that's kind of low. But then I scrolled down, like, we have 39 books.
We do have 39 books, and with the exception of maybe like 3 things, most of them have been pretty baller.
Yeah, and I really do like this book. I think it's good, but I also know that it's going to be significantly lower on my list than it is on Daniel's because I enjoy it not being a fan of cosmic horror, and Daniel is a fan of cosmic horror. So,
love it.
So it's going to be much higher on his list. Let's go to Daniel.
Oh, God. I'm going to put this at number... It's going to go right below Salem's Lot.
It's your new number 14, below Salem's Lot and above Battle Royale. That's not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah. I just really couldn't justify it, putting it above The Stand or...
No. Yeah,
some of the other stuff. I can see myself rereading those more times. Well, maybe not more times than this because it's so short, but enthusiastically.
That's the biggest reason it's as high as it is for me, is because it's short.
Yeah.
Like, if it was longer, that would not be a very high one for me.
Homework! What dark secret did Helen whisper in your ear? And it was for me, it was something that I learned today.
Yeah.
Is a true fact that legally, if you consume your own urine, you are a cannibal.
What?
But if it's consensual, then it's not illegal.
It has to be consensual with yourself?
Well, anybody's urine. So if you consume human urine
without consent.
Yeah, if you consume human urine, blood, semen, like, then you are a cannibal, but it's not illegal if it's consensual.
Okay. That might make me hang myself.
And I have drank urine. I have
consensually?
also... Yes.
Okay.
Consensually.
My own. Okay. Just to try it. Just like, Oh, well. Actually, I may not have swallowed it, but I have definitely swallowed female body fluids, so I am technically a cannibal.
And I'm hungry.
But, I mean, their permission, I assume.
Yeah, but you're still a cannibal, it's just not illegal.
That's the secret that Helen was...
I'm fucking done with this conversation.
What dark secret did Helen whisper in your ear?
Lightning comes from the ground.
Sometimes. Like, it's both.
The fact that I didn't know it happened at all, and now...
I mean, I didn't either.
Yeah, now I'm not ready for
you remember how much we got done in that earth science class in high school? Damon's peeing in the river. Jamin Johnson, you pull your pants up right now. I am so done with this class.
Man, I should have gone before him because I was gonna steal his answer. She just whispers to me the real reason all my exes broke up with me.
For further reading, Frankenstein, obviously, the works of H.P. Lovecraft, obviously.
The Dunwich Horror specifically is basically just this book, but longer.
Stephen King said that his novella In was a riff on The Great God Pan. I wrote down The Lawnmower Man by Stephen King, which is... Pan is actually... That's like his... I guess you would say it's another riff on The Great God Pan. That's a great short story. I love it. I also wrote down The Mortal Immortal by Mary Shelley, which is one of her short stories where an alchemist tries to discover the secret of immortality.
I wrote down Ring for a very specific reason, that there's guys investigating a vague-looking girl doing creepy shit.
True. And then I also wrote down a novel I read a few years ago called The Old Gods Waken by Manly Wade Wellman.
That looks amazing.
It is a cosmic horror novel that takes place in Appalachia, so basically like West Virginia H.P. Lovecraft.
I need that.
I absolutely hated this book. I thought it was the most boring thing printed on paper. However, that doesn't mean that other people don't like it, because it's the first of a series and there's a ton of them.
Oh, okay. Well,
and then BJ Harrison, the person who I talked about at the beginning of the episode, he always ends the Classic Tales podcast by saying, if you like this story, you might like... And he recommended The Dunwich Horror by H.P. Lovecraft and Pillar of Fire by Ray Bradbury.
Pillar of Fire has also been on my reading list for a while.
Maybe we'll cover it. Upcoming on the Horror of Babylon next Sunday, April 28th, we are reading the comic adaptation of this book, which is entitled Arthur Machen's The Great God Pan, and is written and illustrated by Daniel Bell. Then the next Sunday, May 5th, we're keeping the cosmic horror flowing, reading The Shadows over Innsmouth by H.P. Lovecraft. And then our next two Thursday bonus episodes, on April 25th, we are wrapping up our series of interviews with Mr. Heff. And then the following Thursday, May 2nd, we are doing our second annual Star Wars Day bonus episode. And like Star Wars, something that I love more than almost anything else in the world is our patrons, including Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron, and Ben, the Fourth Patron of Hope, and Mia the Fifth, the Rainmaker.
She makes it rain.
Oh, she makes it rain. And Sierra the Sixth, the Keyblade Patron. Wonk. Wonk. Wonk.
Sounds like you're trying to beat somebody with a lead pipe.
That, because I'm trying to, like, imagine, like, what a Keyblade would actually sound like when you swing it.
Anytime I think of Kingdom Hearts, I think of Sora's feet running around.
With those, like, goofy shoes. Yeah. Wonk. And thank you to Horsemen Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You can shop online at fourhorsemen.tcgplayerpro.com. And if you make it in the store, say hello to Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas. And if you go to the Morgantown store, there is a bust on the desk that has one of those horse masks over top of it. If you remove the horse mask, you will see the head of a satyr. And remove that horse mask at your own risk, because you may not like what you see underneath that rubber and plastic. Guys, thank you for reading The Great God Pan, especially to Hef for reading it on such short notice and recording with me. He's a real one. And thank you to our patrons. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary, folks.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/thehorrorofbabylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.